So good morning again, and welcome to this very important opening session of the second day of the conference. We're very pleased to welcome here today esteemed guests. We're very happy on behalf of the Economist Group and our hosts in Greece to welcome the Prime Minister of Albania, Edi Rama, the newly elected Prime Minister of North Macedonia, Zoran Zaev. And we also have joining us for the discussion this morning two people who are very knowledgeable about the Balkan region with long experience in the region, two former foreign ministers from different sides of the political spectrum. So I'm very pleased also to have with us Dora Bakoyannis, who's a member of the Greek Parliament for New Democracy and a former Greek Foreign Minister. Also George Katrougkalos, member of the Greek Parliament also for SYRIZA and former Greek Foreign Minister. Now, notwithstanding the pandemic, it's been a very tumultuous year in the Western Balkans region. So we've had the invitation, very importantly, to Albania and North Macedonia to open EU accession talks, so we're going to hear more about that. We've had very important elections in Serbia, first of all, in North Macedonia, in Montenegro, with a historic result, and in Kosovo. We've had the restart of the EU dialogue, also on between Kosovo and Serbia. And most recently, we've had the US brokered agreement on Kosovo on economic matters. So 4 of the 6 Western Balkan countries are now on the accession path, and we're looking forward to hearing the perspective of both our prime ministers and our 2 other guests on how they expect that process to go. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Edi Rama, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm very glad to be here with all of you, and especially with a very special person that was the mayor of Athens once upon a time, and I always cherish the memory of how much Dora Bakoyannis did for integrating the Albanians in the capital, and how much she did to strengthen the relations between Albanians and Greeks. And it was not obvious at that time because it was still a process of integration of the Albanian people that found a new life here in Greece after leaving Albania once the dictatorship fell. And life is wonderful. I met yesterday the Prime Minister, and I remembered because we met in the same place where I long ago had the pleasure to shake hands with Doras and his father. And I never imagined that one day in the same place I would be dining with the Prime Minister of Greece. But, you know, life is really wonderful. And this being said, I think that Albania and all the countries of the Western Balkans are in a very important moment of their history, between a past we want to leave behind once and forever, and the future that is still not there, by being integrated, fully integrated in the European Union. And this is not, of course, an obvious thing, while we see that the European Union has its own big struggles and its own big challenges. And it looks a bit like a kind of Balkan curse, because when they were happy together and were ready to have more of them in the table, we were in a bad shape. Now that we are in a pretty good shape, they are not happy together, and they have their own problems, so the whole process is in a kind of special difficulty. But despite that, we don't have another alternative, and we don't want another alternative. Our only alternative is to be part of the European Union, not because others, bigger, more powerful friends are asking it from us, but because this is a demand of our kids, of our next generations, and this is a perpetual dream of our fathers, grandfathers, and so on. In the Western Balkans, we have embarked since a while in a process of cooperation, pacification, and mutual understanding. And it's a great thing. I believe that nowadays, although we have disagreements and although we have big issues like the issue of Kosovo and the non-recognition from Serbia, yet we still are able to sit, to discuss, to look forward, and to prepare our future together. This is a very special time because we were hit, as everyone else, by these pandemics, and as we understand and as we also can see in forecasts from different international organizations, the Western Balkans will be the most hit by the consequences of the pandemics, but still I strongly believe there is a very big potential to be unleashed, and it's up to us to move faster forward by closing the gaps of the past and cooperating more and more and more with each other. And I think the best news is that we have a clear understanding that disagreements can be addressed through dialogue, and dialogue is the only instrument that can make us agree on many things while still disagreeing on certain things. And to conclude this introduction, I would bring here one of the most stunning examples of this time, an example that everyone has praised, the solution that was found through an intense dialogue between Greece and North Macedonia. And I'm very proud to be here with Zoran, a very dear friend, a very skillful and wise leader who has succeeded to win another election, and who has proved again that leadership is about going against the odds and being brave enough to go against taboos. And what he did in North Macedonia, also in relation with the Albanian people, and how he promoted, by being a Macedonian leader, the Albanian language, the integration of Albanians in the whole pyramid of the administration of the country, is simply historical and is amazing, and is a lesson for everyone that trying simply to please and not having the courage to break with taboos that may look like risking your own career and your own legacy is not the way to really win. So he won an election again, but most importantly, he won based on a conviction, and he created consensus around the conviction and not shaped the conviction because of consensus. And this is absolutely magnificent, and I hope all of us have learned something from that. Myself, for sure, I've learned something, and I thank him for that.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Well, that needs no further introduction then for me to, that's a very nice introduction to introduce the Prime Minister of North Macedonia, Zoran Zaev.
Thank you very much, dear Edi, dear Madam Bakoyannis, dear Mr. Katrougkalos. It's a really pleasure, dear friends, dear Ambassador. It's a pleasure to attend this session and to talk about the future of Western Balkan. Really, I feel that this kind of fulfillment of my dream to came in Athens to talk about business, to talk about cooperation, to talk about sharing experience. I'm very happy because everything what's happened in the last few years here in the whole Balkan, I believe very much it's a kind of special focus for Western Balkan countries who doesn't have alternative than European Union and NATO membership, and that strategic goals for all of the countries lead us to make reforms in our countries to improve the quality of life for our citizens. And we are very happy because we built very good friendship, and through that friendship we changed the Balkans, really became more and more European. And my country, it's changed a lot. It's not only changing of our name, but also we change in a better way, in a variety of ways. Increase democracy, the whole freedoms inside. We increase the standard of living of our citizens. We cooperate with all our friends, with Greece, with Albania, with Bulgaria, Serbia, Kosovo, and we have really good examples of cooperation, and we have a lot of success together. We work how to intense also and to increase the cooperation inside of Western Balkan, because it's so much border barriers. So we develop the agenda of and enhance cooperation between countries, and I believe that will bring a lot of pleasant atmosphere for businesses and for traveling of the citizens inside of this southeastern part of Europe. Really, the leadership, what we get it from Greece, it's very helpful for North Macedonia and for Albania to have the prime ministers to fight for us, for our European Union future. Also for North Macedonia to be a member country of NATO, it's a historical moment. And really, Greece is the oldest member of NATO and oldest member of European Union. And always is good for the whole region to take a leadership in promoting and helping and opening the path in the European Union for all countries in the Western Balkan, because 6 of us are candidate countries or countries with an intention to be member country of European Union. And together with everything what's really happened in this period of time, I think that the focus of the western part of Europe and all European Union countries are very high and bigger than in the past, and that lead the businesses, that lead the public administration, that lead the citizens from our country in that path. A lot of positive things are happening today. I will have the honor to meet the Madam President, the Prime Minister Mitsotakis, and to talk about the future steps. We implemented PRESPA agreement, and we need to continue after our elections to find a way how to solve brand names of the products. And in October, we have the Chambers of Commerce from Greece, from Athens, from Thessaloniki in Skopje to develop idea, and after that, experts group continuing for a solution of that. Also, historical groups and a group for books working, and I know with the new group from Greek side, they will find solutions as soon as possible, because that is easiest part, and we need to develop that kind of activities what will put us together to work even harder. In the past, Greece in the last years are second biggest trade partner of North Macedonia and the third biggest investor in North Macedonia. After the Prespa agreement, we increase the trade 20%, what is very rare, and that's happened in 2019. And we hope that after the Corona crisis, we will continue of increasing this trade. But the whole trade inside of the Balkan are improved in a positive way, and that show that the businessmen, the citizens, follow the positive atmosphere what is created here. Really, in this period of time, like Edi said, I sent a message that politicians can win elections after dramatic and historical decisions, tough decisions, and courageous decisions. We solve all internal issues in multi-ethnical country, because beside Macedonians, we have Albanians, more than 23-24%, but we have Serbs, Turks, we have Bosniaks, Vlachs, Romans, all together. And now we are a country without open issues inside. We vote for implementation of the law for using of languages, what fulfill the legal framework of Ohrid Framework Agreement, and that close all open issues inside of the country. And now it's very pleasant all together, the parliament, the government, the president work for the citizens. And that brings a lot of benefits to the country with multiply effects. And also, after the agreement with Bulgaria and agreement with Greece, really we are a country who develop huge friendship with all 5 our neighbors. And that really improve the whole quality of life in North Macedonia. We develop agenda what put the economy in a very aggressive race. So 3 years ago, we have in depression, we have recession of minus 1.8 of our GDP. We finished 2019 with 3.6 growth of our GDP. We decrease unemployment from 24.7 to 16.2%, so more than 11%. And the percentage go down also, even during the period of crisis, or is stable. And a lot of new jobs are open, a huge investment happen. And now, this summit and invitation by the Economist, really it's an opportunity to open a new momentum for new business partnership between businessmen from Greece and North Macedonia, but also a new partnership between our citizens. And I believe that they will have a huge interest in the future, developing the investment agenda, because really all regions have a lot of foreign direct investment, but mainly from Germany, from France, from Italy, from, I don't know, Great Britain, Poland. I think that we need to use this opportunity and to find a way how to have each other more and more investment from the region. Because, as you know, we are less developed countries, those of us who are not members of European Union, and that means that we have lowest cost of working. So not only the lowest cost of working force, but also for the resources, for the taxations, for a lot of things. That means that the companies can count good profitability and sustainability in the future. And I believe that today I will talk with Prime Minister for finding solution for avoiding double taxation, so to make agreement, because we don't have agreement for that, protect investment, what is also very, very important, but also find a way how to relax the complete administrative procedure in our borders. And of course, the willingness from the Greek side is very high to continuing to work in this direction. And for me, it's very important to show to the rest of the world, especially for this region, Southeastern Europe, that every agreement, that every friendship behavior and every shaking hands bring a benefit to our citizens to whom we serve. I want to share with you, friends, that we prepare a stable government who intend to remain 4 years, because we don't have any expectations what will put us to go in the earlier elections. We try to project predictability for our economy mainly, but also for our neighbors, because that is also very important. And through this predictability, through this stability in North Macedonia, I try to encourage the leaders from our neighbors, concretely here from Greece, leaders from the parliament, from the government, and president of the country, to find in North Macedonia a good partner for future development. A new momentum is happening through the stability. I must mention it that a new membership of NATO is happening. North Macedonia is 30th member of NATO. Greece cover our airspace and take care of our space security. And that is really delivering a trust between both nations and both countries, and sent a very pleasant message. We also see 2 times the aircrafts from Greece and United States covering our sky, and citizens react very positively about that. And I believe that in the future will be a lot of new momentums, what we will celebrate successes, contracts between businessmen, and better connections between our countries. North Macedonia and Albania expect in December to start negotiation with the first intergovernmental session. The Chancellor Merkel is very clear and dedicated that during the presidency of Germany, leading the European Union, to have this intergovernmental session. Even nobody knows what will happen with the virus through the winter. But of course, now with the digital tools and everything what is possible, we hope that we will have successful intergovernmental session, what will officially announce start of negotiation for North Macedonia and Albania. And through the chapters, through the Europeization of our countries, I think that we will be a better partners for our neighbors, and we will deserve more and more our path to full membership of European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Okay, we have many questions for both of you, and I'm sure from the floor we'll have some. But first, let's turn and hear the Greek perspective on developments, recent developments, and for the future. So, Dora Bakoyannis, over to you.
Let me start by thanking and welcoming both Prime Ministers to Athens. It's really a great pleasure during the COVID crisis. We have at last the opportunity to see each other in person. I would also like to welcome Nikola Dimitrov, an old friend, the new Vice Prime Minister of North Macedonia. I would like to thank Edi Rama for what he said about our cooperation quite many years ago. It's true that we worked together with Edi for the integration of, at the time, 1 million Albanians who came over to Greece, and they're becoming a very strong community in Greece and working and helping also the Albanians back. And we always saw the ethnic Greek minority in Albania and the Albanian community in Greece as bridges of friendship between the two countries. And it is very important that we continue working on that, because this is one of the main forces of friendship which we can have between the two countries, except, of course, the future for all the countries in the region. I welcome also the Prime Minister of North Macedonia saying very honestly that though we didn't support the Prespa agreement, we were very, very keen to see him being elected in North Macedonia, because except everything else, he fought against populism and radical nationalism, which was one of the main curses of the whole Balkan region. So I'm very ready to really congratulate him, because his victory is a victory for the pro-European and pro-Western democratic forces in the whole region. And the truth is that the region has two different political opinions. There are still a lot of people who are against, who are Euroscepticists, who are not delighted with the Western affiliation, who do not want the NATO participation, are under different influences. And the others, who are the pro-Europeans, who see the future of the Western Balkans in Europe, in NATO, in very close cooperation with the rest of the countries. So I'm happy to say that the momentum is quite positive, because for the moment it seems like the pro-European forces have really the lead in the Western Balkans. And this makes our responsibility very big. The responsibility of Greece, but also the responsibility of the European Union. Because to be very honest, the European Union forgot about the Western Balkans for many years. And this is something we have honestly to admit, because it was the so-called fatigue of a lot of countries. They didn't want to expand anymore. The whole migration crisis and the whole political problems inside the different European countries led a lot of our European partners to think that, okay, we are big enough, we don't need any more countries inside the European Union. Now that was a very big mistake, and that was a very, very wrong message to the societies and to the peoples of the Western Balkans. We had a small crisis with France a little bit before the elections of Zoran Zaev. I mean, honestly, I thought that there could not be a worse problem for him to deal with than the impression that the European path was not secure. Luckily enough, it was solved successfully, so that the message became clear again. So I believe that we have a unique momentum at the moment, a momentum where the economic cooperation is extremely important. Why it's extremely important? Because, of course, a market of 30 million people is a very important market. This market, we will have it when we are all together, when the projects are projects for the whole region. And this makes sense, of course, to every investor who hears it. That's why it's very important what Zoran said, that this cooperation, we brought also a bill now in the Greek Parliament already. So this kind of cooperation has to go on, and go on quite quickly, because all of the countries are facing big economic challenges. And the second is that Greece, of course, has the responsibility to promote as much as possible the candidacies of these countries in the European Union. On the other side, there is a responsibility also for our partners, and this is the responsibility to proceed with all these changes which have to take place to establish more democracy, to fight corruption, to fight the problems which in different countries still exist, and give arguments to our partners who are not excited with the process of the membership. So this is extremely important. But George Katrougkalos and I are in the Council of Europe today. We are dealing a lot with the structural problems with the Venice Commission, trying to help the process of some very important changes which have to take place. So, to make the long story short, cooperation, mutual understanding, tolerance, and going forward with problems which had stopped us for years is the policy I think we have to follow. Greece, as you know, signed also two important agreements in the last months with Egypt and Italy about the delineation of our, how do you call it, borders, maritime zones. Yes, sorry. Maritime zones. We hope we will continue on that path also with Albania in the next months to come. And I think that with the leadership which we have today in the Western Balkans and with the German chairmanship, and there Zoran is right, because Germany is very much interested in pushing forward these candidacies, we will make the progress which the people will see and will support. So thank you very much.
So over to you, George Katrougkalos. Let's hear.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like also myself to welcome the Prime Ministers, my friend Nicola, here in Greece. We should always remember that it was Thessaloniki in 2003 which put in its agenda the Europeanization of the Balkans. But we needed also the courage of Zoran Zaev and Alexis Tsipras for the Prespa Agreement in order to unfroze the frozen landscape of the negotiations for European accession, to break the inertia and the reticences of many of our European partners. And I'm very glad that already, since last year's conference of the Economist here, we had also the Greek government to recognize the historic significance of this agreement. We heard, I remind you, already last year, a change of narrative, not anymore that we had an international treaty, what can we do? We cannot cancel it, with a new positive narrative that underscored what the Prespa Agreement has done, not just for sending a message that it is possible to resolve differences and bitter differences with dialogue and in a peaceful way, but also to send an optimistic message to all the peoples of the Balkans that the European way is open to them if they want to work closely with their neighbors and overcome differences of the past. And already this week, in the Parliament, we are going to discuss two important agreements signed by our SYRIZA government with the government of Zoran Zaev, and I think this is a very positive step forward. Regarding Albania, Prime Minister Rama was very right to say that the Albanian migrants here is a success story, how they have been integrated. And Dora was also right to mention that our historic minority in Albania can be a bridge of friendship between the two countries. We have also forwarded the dialogue during our administration with Prime Minister Rama, and we have been very close to a package solutions of all the issues that we have to discuss, maritime zones included. There are still, of course, issues to be worked on. We have also issues regarding our historic minority there, property issues, self-determination issues. But I'm sure that the goodwill of Prime Minister Rama is going to be pivotal, working with the current government to have a fair and working solution to all these issues we have with a friendly country like Albania. A last footnote so as to let the discussion begin. There is an elephant in the room. If not in the room, in the Balkans, and then not only here. I'm speaking about Turkey. Turkey has now grandiose ambitions to become a peripheral naval force. And there is nothing bad about ambitions. But in order to be legitimate, ambitions must be legal. So we consider that Turkey has a place in the architecture of security in Europe. And nobody, Greece least of all, would like to exclude Turkey. But of course, every country in Europe should accept the international law as basis of any discussions, of any relations with their neighbors. And we have in Europe a framework of rules related to the rule of law and respect of international legality, which is pivotal for bringing the countries together. And closing my introduction, I would like to congratulate again Economist for, in these dire circumstances of the COVID virus, has reconfirmed this conference as an institution connecting Greece, not just with our immediate neighborhood, but also with the world. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much for that, George. I have a question to start with, and I'm sure some of our audience will have as well. And so I wanted to pick up on some of the points that all of you were making there. So the question is, has the COVID pandemic made the region, the Western Balkans region, more or less important for the EU? Now, Edi Rama said that there is no alternative, to echo a former UK Prime Minister, there is no alternative for your region except to join the EU. Dora mentioned enlargement fatigue, which seems to have been hanging over this whole process for a long time. Has that dissipated, do you think, as a result of the pandemic and the extraordinary circumstances in which Europe and this region find themselves? Are you satisfied, actually, that you've had enough help from the EU, your partners in the EU, during the early stage of the crisis? We heard some criticism from some quarters in the region that the EU was actually not doing enough. So it would be good to hear your views, and then how do you think this is going to impact the whole process? Obviously, the negotiating framework is now being drafted. There's a new accession process for the Western Balkans. Is it important for you to have a realistic timeline for accession, for joining the EU? So maybe, Edi, would you like to start to address some of those points?
My grandmother used to say, happy neighbor, happy house. There is no happy house with an unhappy neighbor. And I think the experience shows that she was a really intelligent woman. I think the Western Balkans cannot be left aside and should not be left aside, because the reality is there, and life is even stronger than reality. And of course, if the Western Balkans today are in a very encouraging moment regarding the potential of the cooperation being unleashed, although slowly, although with its own difficulties, it doesn't mean that things cannot get worse in case the frustration and the sense of being left aside prevail upon the ambition and the desire to be part of the European family. The pandemic, let me say, showed something absolutely stunning and unimaginable before it happened. How much vulnerable the world is today, and how much similar the situation was, despite the size of the country, despite the power of the country, despite the level of knowledge and science in any country. So looking big countries, you know, that were struggling for masks practically every day, masks, and thinking about the trillions of investments in military and in science was quite shocking. It's quite shocking. And on the other hand, it was somehow consolating for us, because we saw that for once there was no big and small, powerful and weak. We were all in the same boat. And I want to hope and to believe that this can be a good lesson of how much interconnected we are today, and how much the security and the safety and the prosperity of the ones depends from the security, safety and prosperity of the others. So the idea of building castles and separating the world in different castles, or Europe, keeping Europe in different castles, is a crazy and has no really the solution that pretends to have. So I strongly believe that we need to think about it, and of course we in the Western Balkans are very clear about it, but At the same time, I mentioned a bit before that the European Union today is not in its best shape, suffers from a lot of distractions, and also suffers from a very sensible fear. You know, we can feel it. You know, there is fear about the future in the European Union, and it looks somehow like the populism and the need for re-election have created a kind of mixture that time after time become policy and harms the future of the great project that the European Union is. And I don't think that that there is yet a proper answer to that. I mean, unified answer to that. And this, of course, creates room for insecurity and for strange feelings and reactions. But still, you know, I believe that in our very modest size and in our humble position, we have to do our best, and for us it's key, for Albania is key to strengthen relations in the neighborhood, to solve problems of the past, to make the best out of the fact that we have a very mixed life. You know, there are so many Albanians living in Greece, and there are a lot of Greeks living in Albania. So I bring an example, but it goes the same. You know, Macedonia, North Macedonia is based on this harmony between North Macedonians and Albanians, and so it is Kosovo, so it is Serbia, so it is every country in the region, and we need to change once and forever the attitudes and to see these presences in our own states as an incredible treasure, and we need to cherish this treasure and to make the best out of it by heriting to our children and children of our children this incredible source of energy and of harmony that is having others in your own house and making them feel in their house, and this is crucial also to be stronger when we are hit by the waves of populism or waves of discontent that have always a tendency to bash the other, to bash who is different, to bash who suddenly becomes a foreigner, although being there from centuries or from decades, no matter what, but having a family, having children, speaking both languages, and being ready to give its best to the house.
Thanks very much, Prime Minister. Before I ask Zoran Zaev to come back, I just want to check, is there a question from the floor? Because we're on a very tight schedule. We've got 2 sessions on foreign policy and security coming up. So before I bring the speakers back, is there anybody with a question? Yes, there at the back. Please use the microphone.
Yeah, I can hear me. One very simple question to Prime Minister Rama. You did speak about cooperation in the Balkans and not having taboos. Why then did you block the 2009 agreement on setting maritime boundaries between Greece and Albania? The issue is still standing. Why?
Okay, thanks. I'll allow you to come back on that at the end. Any other question from the floor? If not so, Zoran Zaev, did you want to comment? Your country's been waiting for a very long time in this waiting room, and to open the talks, I think there's a lot of pent-up impatience in the country. Is it important to you to have a timeline, if you like, an end point in the negotiations, or are you simply happy that the talks are finally starting?
First of all, I totally agree with Edi. Really, we are all connected here in the region, and we are part of Europe, and we are not only in European soil and European continent, we are surrounded from member countries of European Union. We are inside like island, and really we are in a variety of ways connected with the European Union. So of course we need to continue our reforms. We need to improve ourselves. We need to Europeize our countries more and more. But of course that is the path what we need to pass through. First of all, we are very happy that after 15 years being candidate country, we start negotiation. And we have real expectation. We don't rush. We don't have some decision to be member of European Union only to be member of European Union. We need to bring Europe inside of North Macedonia, in Skopje, in all our cities and villages. And I mentioned it to the businessmen, it's a kind of a honeymoon for us now. And we need to use it this period of time, when the whole focus of experts from European Union, mainly from our neighbors, will be through the negotiation process. The new methodology, what is formed, opening a complete, not only one chapter by chapter, but the group of chapters together will give us fair chance to modernize our countries, to improve our countries normally, and to make it closer to European Union. But also Europe find us in a few ways very positively that confirm why we need sometimes to be members of European Union. For example, when refugees crisis happened, we was here to follow and to keep security politics for European Union. We cooperate completely with European Union. Also, now during this COVID crisis, Europe saw how China is far away. For some products, for some things, really it's good to think about to develop some agenda and activities here in the southeastern Europe, because we are also very attractive in a matter of expenditures of producing some services or some products, really. For example, we need two hours by plane from our capital to almost every capital in the European Union. Of course, to Athens, 1 hour. But there is 1 month need for some products to came, for example, from China to some of European capitals. So I mentioned that in a way how much we are connected. And of course, the expectation is how much is necessary. 5, 7, 10 years. It depends mainly from us, but it depends also from European Union how much they are focused to the Western Balkan. I hope that our neighbors, Greece and Bulgaria for us, but also Romania, Hungary, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, Italy, they are members of European Union and are our neighbors in the whole region. Will keep the focus of the rest of the European Union countries, because we don't expect countries from the north to be so much focused for us here in our European Union path. But of course we are aware that we need to deserve that, we need to show results, and of course we need to be better in our transformation processes through our path to European Union.
Thank you. We have to close the session very shortly to move to our next panel. Prime Minister, I want you to come back on that question. And I guess a question for all of you. I asked about how the pandemic has changed relations between the Western Balkans and the EU, but what about other actors in this region, you know, whether we're talking about China or Russia or Turkey? What's changed with that regard? Do you think the role of those actors will become less important or more important after all this? Some would say that the influence of some of these players in the region is exaggerated, that it's an empty shell, actually, to talk about growing influence of these other players in the region, and that actually the EU is pretty much still the only game in town. So has anything changed, do you think, in that regard, Edi Rama?
First of all, when you invite Balkan people in panels, make sure to have a larger time, because on one hand, this is a very interesting region and we have a lot to talk, and on the other hand, we like to talk. So don't be surprised that time runs fast and then things remain undiscussed. To the dear lady that posed the question, I would say simply that this was an agreement that was rejected by the Constitutional Court of Albania, and I'm very confident that we are in the right track. We had an intense dialogue with the previous government on a whole package of issues that need to be addressed and need to be solved, because they become suddenly, time after time, hot potatoes in the fire of local politics, while they are simply issues that are far less heavy and important than the ground on which the Greek-Albanian relations develop, which is the ground of magnificent relation between people. And our challenge is to make politics among the two countries as good, as excellent as the relation between people. And what I understand by Greek friends and what I see among Albanian fellows, there is no bitterness, there is no negative sentiment between the people. All the contrary. And we owe to the people to bring the relations at that level, and I'm absolutely confident that with the new government here, we are in the right track, and we have all we need to solve not only that, but all the remaining things that then cannot be anymore used by dark forces in our societies as reasons to start firing and to start popping up ghosts of the past. I have a very simple idea, which I have presented before, and I very much hope that sooner more than later we'll have a common ground on that, when it comes to the maritime zone, we can address the issue with the help of others, namely a third country amicably helping us, or even better, international court of law. And this then can be fair, can be objective, and cannot be used by patriots here and there. Just imagine the Prime Minister of Greece speaks to the Greek Parliament about an absolutely legitimate right of Greece, based on the International Convention of the Right of the Sea, to extend its own maritime borders 12 miles, and just that becomes an issue in the social networks in Albania and also in the political circles. Like the Greek Prime Minister has to respond to people that do not know what they are talking about. So it's like, you know, all the time fueling discontent and disagreement based on factually issues that can be solved. As for the question you asked, it's even more complicated, I guess, much more complicated, but I have to say one thing, that we are in strategic partnership with Greece and Turkey. So, but I don't feel that Albania is between a rock and a hard place. I believe that there is absolutely a potential in this Greek-Turkish relation to become a relation that can be helpful also for Europe, because Turkey is instrumental for the security of Europe, and Greece is absolutely instrumental for the borders of Europe. So what can I say? By no doubt, the Turkish president is not an anti-Greek person or politician. And by no doubt, the past here has shown that where there is a will, there is a way, and dialogue, without letting it to others, without bringing in others, just straightforward dialogue. Of course, it's not easy. Nothing is easy, but is absolutely possible. And I'm 100% convinced that a constructive Greek-Turkish relation can be an added value for the whole Europe. And in fact, Greece is in the right place to be in between, like the honest broker, and I'm sure that this will happen, but until this will happen, I don't know what will happen. So this is my last thought.
Thanks very much. So before I bring in Zoran Zaev to conclude, Dora or George, did you want to make any final comments on what you've heard?
Well, trying to answer both your questions, if COVID-19 showed something, is the very big interconnection between our countries. So when Albania had a big rise in COVID cases, a few weeks later, Greece had the same problem, which means that we need also a regional strategy to fight the pandemic. It's not only enough to make the decision in each other's countries, because the interconnection is very big. Now, to what he said about the agreement, I signed this agreement with Albania and was, of course, very much unhappy when I heard the decision of the Constitutional Court. That does not excuse that 10 or 12 years later we still don't have an agreement. I think we have to try harder, find an agreement with Albania. It is important for both our countries. Of course, to be very honest, the interference of third countries in this kind of questions does not help. So we know that Turkey was very much against this agreement. And I believe that the best possible relations we can have, and I agree with Prime Minister Rama about what he said about the Greek-Turkish relations. Yes, we are very much, and I personally am known in Greece as a very strong supporter of dialogue between Greece and Turkey and negotiations. But it's also very clear that this can happen only if there are no threats, because threats of war are not acceptable by any international law. So I hope sincerely that President Erdogan will make all the efforts necessary to de-escalate the tensions and change also the rhetoric. I've known him for years, and I hope he realized that this is not a successful way of doing politics also for Turkey, and that we can go back to the table of the negotiations, as I believe both our peoples sincerely want, and try to find a way either to agree or to go to the International Court about this one issue, which is our issue, the delineation of the maritime zones. So I hope that the message came through, the message from the European Union, the message of most of the countries of the Mediterranean. And I hope that the spirit of today between our three countries will also prevail as the spirit which will prevail also with Turkey. Thank you.
Thanks, Dora.
I have to contradict Dora in one point. The Constitutional Court of Albania has ruled about this agreement on 2009. At that time, I never met, I never spoke, I never heard from President Erdogan, then Prime Minister of Turkey, and we had no relation. We were the main opposition party, and we decided to bring the agreement in the court for one reason, very simple reason. It was a big debate in the society, which started by some civil society people, and I didn't want this debate to become political and to become the usual fight between opposition and power in our region about traitors and about patriots and about all this nonsense. And I said, we bring it to the court, and the court has all the instruments to check. So the idea, and I have heard it in Albania, and I've heard it even last week from high authorities, former and new, that this is an agreement that has been prevented by the interference of Turkey, is absolutely non-true. And I can say, and this is just my word, I don't have tapes, but never in any meeting with President Erdogan, I didn't hear from him that this agreement or this issue between Albania and Greece about this agreement is of any Turkish interest. Never. This is the truth. So we need to just clean the air from this kind of ideas, because then they affect our attitude towards each other. In the sense, we need to solve it, yes. We want to solve it, yes. We have a common understanding that this is solvable, yes. And I'm very much grateful to Prime Minister Mitsotakis and to Minister Dendias, because they have had a very constructive attitude, and they have shown the will to solve it without having to go back like nothing happened before, but taking stock from what we worked together with the previous government and approaching it just with open hearts and with clear mind that nobody is interested to keep this kind of issues like an impediment for us to unleash all the potential of this relation. And Dora was right, COVID, in hospitals, we have Albanians and we have also Greek minority people. And they are hit by the same virus and they are in front of the same danger. So we need to see our own people in each other's country like a treasure, and we need to treasure this incredible potential that Albanians in Greece and Greeks in Albania can offer for this relation.
Thank you very much. Well, as Prime Minister Rama said, maybe we should have set aside a few hours for this discussion, but unfortunately the schedule doesn't allow that, and we do have to draw to a close. I'm just going to ask George, have you got any brief final comments? And then Prime Minister
I'm going to be very brief. Regarding COVID, we have mixed results. At the beginning, every country has tried to respond in a national, I would say even selfish way. Even the closure of the frontiers did not occur according to the formal Schengen agreement. Now we have tried to respond in a European way, exactly as we have seen that the market cannot cope alone and we need a strong social state. In the same way, we have seen that international cooperation, concertation is very pivotal for that. Regarding the presence of other players, it is a polycentric world. It's quite obvious why other countries, China, Arab countries, Russia, are active in our neighborhood. It is not necessarily a bad thing. Greece has a political home, European Union, but wants to become a bridge between this union and other parts of the world, Russia, China, the Arab world. Never been a colonial power. We can be a honest broker between our political home and the rest of the world. So I think that it's an open ground for close cooperation between our friends, North Macedonia, Albania, but also with other peripheral players here.
Thank you very much. So, Prime Minister Zaev, the final thoughts from you.
The title of the session, reinforcing cohesion during the difficult times. Really, Europe showed also to us solidarity during this period of time. They put us possibility to approach to the European funds equally like member countries. They take decisions to help us with very cheap loans, 3.3 billion euros in a very difficult time when nobody knows where the development of economic aspects will create it. I mentioned it only there to conclude it that yes, in all European continents we need to continue in cooperation, but also here in Southeastern Europe even more. Because if we increase this cooperation, I think the western and northern part of Europe will appreciate us more and more, and we will be more valuable partners in a variety of ways. Of course, we don't need to forget never that we are Europe here, and we need primarily to work together. Our strategic partner is United States, but also it's good to cooperate with other players in the region because we are democrats, we are symbols of democracy, we are open, we are symbols of freedoms, and having that in mind, always it's good to be leaders in these democratic values. And I hope that we will follow, like candidate countries, all these European countries and European values, but of course leadership is needed by European countries here, and I think the Greece take very good positive role.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to thank all of you for your contribution to this discussion, which I am sure is being followed by very many people online. Unfortunately, in these circumstances, we haven't had the usual number of people in the room, but do not doubt that people are following this discussion. And just to extend the gratitude of the Economist Group and our hosts, the Greek government, again to you for coming in person to attend the event. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand over to Daniel.